Welcome to the 323 podcast, where we look at how faith and work intersect. Each week, we talk to business leaders and difference makers about honoring God in the way we lead, create, and serve, because in everything we do, our work can reflect the one we serve. My guest today is Kris Yagel, who currently serves as the interim CEO of El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank. And he's also the founder of Diligent Plans. Kris brings a rare combination of lived leadership and hard-won perspective. He's a military veteran, a leadership speaker, and someone who has walked through deep personal brokenness to a place of restoration and healing. His work today is centered around developing leaders and building high-functioning teams. At the heart of Kris's story is a conviction that leadership is not about distance, polish, or control, but about presence, humility, and showing up when it matters most. Kris, welcome to the 323 podcast.
Tiffany, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's start out by talking about your military background. How did you end up here in El Paso?
Sure thing. So originally from the East Coast, I was born in West Virginia and then moved to Pennsylvania before grade school. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. I actually became my high school's first attendee and then later graduate of West Point.
Awesome.
And I came about that in an odd way. One day, my junior year in high school, my dad said, "Have you thought about college?" And I said, "A little bit." I was going to go to Penn State and join most of my friends from rural PA at the main campus of Penn State.
Yeah.
He said, "Have you considered an academy?" And I said, "What's that, Dad?" And so we literally pulled out our 1967 encyclopedias.
Oh, I love it.
And we flipped to the United States Military Academy at West Point. And I saw the pictures of MacArthur and Patton and Eisenhower and Lee and Grant and all these generals and leaders from our nation. And I said, I want to go there. I want to be a part of that. And so in non-typical fashion, that's the only academy I applied to.
Wow.
Most academy grads have applied to all of them, Air Force, Navy.
Yeah.
I just knew I wanted to go there. I didn't get in right away. In fact, I was all set to go to Penn State, and then 4 weeks before what's called report day, our day at West Point, I got a letter in the mail, official looking, and I got in 4 weeks out.
Wow.
So I took a night to think about it, and then I chose that path. And so that led to an amazing journey in the military. West Point, not so amazing, very difficult, and lucky I made it through those 4 years. But that was the path, and I'm clear about where I should have been.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, God's timing is so good. He knew that for whatever reason, that last minute offer was what you needed. So, West Point, you served in the military for 6 years. Is that correct?
I did. I served as a military police officer. I was stationed down in Virginia.
Okay.
So, coming out of West Point, I was actually supposed to go to Louisiana, and I can't remember the name of the base right now. Fort Polk, okay. Louisiana, which was not a great assignment. It was really a bad assignment, not known to be one of the better places to go. During the basic course, a priority fill came up in a place called Fort Eustis on the Virginia Peninsula right outside of Williamsburg.
Yep.
And so I got it. And so I ended up going there, had an amazing time there. 9/11 came about, and my colonel says, "Kris, we need an officer down at a satellite base that I'm in charge of called Fort Story." Okay. Fort Story is on the Atlantic Ocean. It's got a couple miles of coastline, and it's a very small base, but he needed an MP leader there. I ended up going down there and running a military SWAT team during that time, and training with SEALs and all sorts of stuff. It was a very atypical career, and one that I'd do over again, despite maybe some injuries I got along the way. But fast forward, I went through some training in Missouri a couple times, and then ended up here at Fort Bliss as my last assignment.
Yeah.
And left the military in 2005.
Which, I feel like so many stories start with I was born here, or military brought me here, whether it was my parents, my grandparents, or but I think that's a common theme of so many stories of people who love the borderland is that the military was part of that. So
Absolutely.
So great. Well, since you've been here in El Paso, you've done a variety of things, different leadership. What are some of the leadership highlights of your time here in El Paso?
I think one of them was I'm not, I don't know if it was a leadership highlight, but it enabled me to get into the leadership path that I was really destined to go into, I think. I was doing medical device sales for a bit of time. I became a district manager, but I had no direct reports. I was kind of an individual contributor, and I had a medical device product that was for veterans. So I got to go to veterans hospitals across 2.5 states.
Oh, cool.
I was doing really well. And at one point, I just had this inkling in my spirit that told me, I got something else for you. And I had ignored it for a period of time, and as those things go, it never really goes away until you listen. And so I walked away from that device job and started my own consulting company, ultimately to do leader and team development. And it took some courage, walking away from a 6-figure income into a startup. I think the first year I made 18 grand, and that was tough. God blessed it though, and every year after that, I seemed to double in income and grow a network. So I learned that, one of the tenets of leadership is sometimes you just got to be courageous and take a leap, especially if you feel led a certain way. He'll take care of you.
Yeah.
He'll guide you. He'll consider all the resources that are needed, things that you didn't even consider. All you just have to do is be faithful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. So you've mentioned the Spirit leading you. Tell us a little bit about your personal faith walk. How did that start? And what does that look like over the years?
I grew up in a very small church, Pennsylvania, about 75 members. It was United Church of Christ. We had a Baptist pastor, and so we were essentially non-denominational because we didn't align with either, really. So he kind of broke us away. And a mentor in my young life growing up, and so I had this Christian walk. I was trained in the way I should go. And I kept that faith for, through West Point and into the military. There was a period of time in the military towards the end and in my younger life where I didn't completely backslide, but I did, my faith was maybe placed at a distant third or fourth in my life. And, that's kind of what the enemy tries to do, is create separation from you and God. So I went through a period of time where I wasn't as faithful as I'd hoped to be. I've since kind of realigned myself back to where I need to be and put him where he belongs. That's number one in my life and in our family. And that's been the best thing. I came back and he had open arms ready for me. And really, I think that's what led to my current position. I had to get myself right before opportunities like that opened up, before he was willing to elevate me. And it took a lot. It was all on me. So to get myself right.
I think it's interesting that so many Christians are very faithful to pray for the safety of our troops who are serving our country. But I think one thing that's missed is that all of us are profoundly impacted by the company we keep. And when you're in the military, you don't have control over the company you keep. And so I, coming from, my husband was in the military, and just seeing how the people around you can have such a profound impact on you, and you can have a profound impact on them. But, whether it's the words we speak, when you're constantly surrounded by words that are not honoring God, it's just so hard to maintain godliness in that area of your life. And so I would say that, one of our jobs as Christians should be to pray for the faith of the men and women who are serving our country as they are surrounded. They don't have necessarily control over who they're surrounded by. So I think it's just what you said, like, pray that those kids who walk into the military and know the right way have those people who can support them and lead them in what is right, even when they're in the military. So
that's such a great point. It's a tough life. The military is tough. Even for soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors who didn't go to war, they take something from you. That service takes something from you. First of all, typically you're given your best years, and they will gladly take it. You are an asset and a tool to get the job done. Now, that doesn't mean there's not caring leaders along the way. I don't want to take anything away from them.
Absolutely.
But as a as a entity, it is we're going to use this tool
Yeah.
to meet our ends
Yeah.
that we want. So it's tough, and it's tough to maintain faith. It's tough not to be cynical. It's tough to not get depressed. Yeah, so you're right. You have to surround yourself with people of faith and really monitor your own, or else
Yeah.
you can go downhill very quickly.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. So you ended up in El Paso. You started Diligent Plans. You're providing leadership and sales training. Most recently, you have stepped in as interim CEO for El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank. Tell me a little bit about how that came to be and your new role there.
So, as many things in life go, especially when God is involved, it's you look back and say, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
Like there's no way. I still wake up every day and think, God, I can't believe you have trusted me to lead this organization. Such great people, such a charitable, noble mission to feed the hungry. I mean, wow! It's just I could not have guessed this in a million years. Now, to be honest, I have prayed 4 years to be able to lead an organization. Consulting was great. I loved training teams. I loved working in that space. But I wanted to, after the military, I felt that itch to continue leading on my own. And so I've been praying for a couple decades about an organization. And, I thought that I would be in a manufacturing role somewhere helping a team to make widgets, and that would be my role. And, he surprised me with this one. There is no way I would have guessed that I'm going to elevate you to lead one of 200 food banks in the United States and this charitable mission with this great team. It's just way beyond any expectation and even the level of my prayers. And I pray some pretty big prayers. So
That's awesome.
it's crazy. It's great. So it's been an honor and a pleasure so far.
Yeah, that's great. Tell me a little bit about what leadership looks like today. So you've stepped into an organization that has been around for quite a while. While it's not a faith-based organization, I think that any Christian can see how feeding the hungry is definitely a call that Jesus had on each one of us. So what does it look like to step into an organization that already had a culture, that already had teams, and what does leadership look like for you in this season?
Sure thing. One of the charges that the board placed upon me when they asked me to be interim is to really first to stabilize the culture, take care of the inner team, and really set a new course in that regard. And so I knew that was important. So how do I do that as a Christian where I can't really talk openly, or I can't make leadership decisions based on my Christian faith in an outward way, if that makes sense, right? So one of the things that I've taught leaders over the years to do, and one of the things I learned many years ago in my military training, is you should do a leadership philosophy. A leadership philosophy is basically you put everything that you believe about leadership on paper. These are my top values. These are my expectations. Here's what you can expect from me. And you even include things like pet peeves. Don't leave coffee in the coffee maker overnight, whatever it may be. That drives me crazy. Because the premise is, oftentimes leaders come into an organization and the team has to spend months trying to figure out how they lead and all those things that I mentioned. And there can be an element of eggshells. They're walking on eggshells trying to figure out the boss, It's like a marriage. When you get married, if your spouse slid you her playbook or his playbook right when you started, you would know which way to put the toilet paper and how to fold the towels, right? But you don't. You have to figure it out. And so one of the things I put on my leadership philosophy with the organization, now keep in mind, I don't hold my team to have my values. These are just my values. I'm trying to be open, transparent. Here's how you know me. The first thing I put on there is I believe in God, and I do my best to live a Christian life. And that was my top value, and it is my top value in my life. So I placed that seed out there of how I work my life, how I live my life. And then from there, it's by example. I can't tell you to believe in God and to do the things, but I can sure lead like I'm supposed to from a Christian way.
Yeah.
And, I think those seeds, eventually return a harvest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that any business owner, whether they're leading an outwardly Christian organization or not, can implement, right? There's no law that says that we cannot say what our foundations are in front of our employees.
Right.
And so I love that you've taken that bold step that the employees know, and they can come ask you more about that, or they can just watch you live that out. But it is bold and brave in that now you have to live up to that. You've put that out there, and now you have to be an example or take responsibility. We all mess up. We all fall short. And then accepting responsibility in those moments, like, hey, I really shouldn't have said that, or I handled that poorly.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about what it looks like to reestablish the culture of an organization. You said that's one of the calls. And what, in a practical standpoint, what are some things leaders can do if a culture has gone off course? How can they begin to realign the culture of an organization?
Sure thing. So I think what happens a lot of times in organizations is, especially ones with such a great mission, it's easy to put all your emphasis on that mission. We gotta feed people. I'll just use the food bank as an example. We gotta feed people, and I agree. I mean, one of the charges in the Bible is to clothe the naked and to feed the hungry, and so we gotta feed. I agree, but it should never be in spite of your team or at the expense of your team.
Yeah.
So I think organizations just have to remember that their team is the one that enables them to successfully complete the mission. Going back to West Point, a very quick story. I did, as part of summer training from West Point, we get to go out and shadow an active duty Army lieutenant in the military during one of my summers. And I think it was called Cadet Troop Leader Time, CTLT. And so I was out in this base. I think it was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, renamed now, but Fort Bragg. And I got to shadow a field artillery lieutenant. And one day we were at a training event, and a specialist, a young soldier, pulled me aside and said, "Sir, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I got some advice for you." I said, "I'll take it." He said, "Remember, we're people. We're not soldiers. We're not assets. We're not tools. We're people."
Yeah.
And that's stuck with me ever since. And so I may count on people within my team to get certain jobs done, but at the end of the day, they have a family at home who's looking to their dad, their husband, their wife, whatever it may be, and they have a whole life outside of what I require them to do at work. And I think there's a real tragedy when leaders only think that they have a work person.
Yeah.
There's a work person, and they believe that the home person is separate, and they've missed the boat on that because it's one person. And if the water heater blew up at 3 a.m., the dog got out, and your child has a fever, they're going to bring that to work with them.
Yeah.
And your empathy and leadership has to take into account their entire life, the wholeness of their life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the same thing we talk about here on the 323 podcast, right? It's that we want to bring our Sunday faith to our Monday work. But in the same way as we want to be a whole integrated person, you're right. We want our people to be whole integrated people. And that means they can't always shut it off at the door. So yeah, that is really important. To touch on one other thing you said there is, taking care of our people first before we can fulfill our mission is kind of like putting, in the airplane, they tell you to put your own mask on before you put it on your child, right? You want your team to be healthy before they begin to go and fulfill their mission, before they go serve their customers, your clients, your vendors. We can't expect our people to go out and take care of others if we're not taking care of them and if we're not making sure their needs are met. So I think that's so important what you've said. What's one thing that God is teaching you right now in this season of transition, of leading through transition? It is an interim position at this point.
Right.
So there is kind of a beginning and an end to that. What's something that God's telling you or teaching you?
Oh, boy. So in really the first formal leadership I've had since the military as a young captain 20 years ago, I've had responsibility, but not necessarily leadership at this level with this amount of people. There's some things I have to get to know about leading outside the military. Yeah. In the military, we had orders,
Yeah.
And those are typically not questions unless they're totally unlawful orders. You got to follow them.
Yeah.
People jump. It is an odd it is an odd place. I walked into my building as a commander when I was in the military. Everybody would stand up. They called the building to attention. I would say carry on, and they go back to work. And that feeds you in a certain way that you really need to check your ego when you leave the military. That doesn't happen anywhere else. So I had to realize that I can't rely on the position to get things done or to inspire people to change or to decisions or to movement or to project completion or things like that.
Yeah.
I really had to understand what challenges they had, how I could develop them. I'm learning this now, how I can develop them, how I can meet them with their needs and their type of personality requirements, and are they a long processor, or they like to make quick decisions, do they get charged up by being around people, or is it deplete them, so I've really had to round out my leadership practice, and this is a work in progress. But I had to be open to it too. I had to realize that I came from a pretty cool environment in the military with a pretty neat background. But that doesn't mean I have all the answers, and I surely don't. And it's teaching me a lot of humility, and just to be open to other ways of doing things and leading.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's true of every phase of life. There's going to be parts of our previous experience that are so applicable, and I can pull this in. Again, my husband is former or retired military, and so he will often say to me, well, that's not how we would have done it in the Army. And I'm like, okay, well, that part might be really good to pull into the civilian world. Well, this other thing, that doesn't work. That doesn't really work. And so I think that's true of every phase of our life. There's those little threads of leadership that we can weave into wherever we are today. So we have a few minutes left. I would ask you, what encouragement would you give to leaders who feel disconnected, exhausted, or uncertain about their calling right now?
I'm going to give you a quote that I believe to be true. I think a lot of times we have a misconception about what leadership is. We watch movies, and we see, and we hear from other sources. We see the leader at the end of the movie standing on top of the hill, victorious. We've overcome, and I've led this, and we see the glamour of leadership. That's all a misconception. I did a TED Talk at West Point years ago, and one of the premises I said was, it is the small things that you do in the shadows that make a real difference. Things that you may do that you may never get recognized for or patted on the back for. It just may go into the person's development, and it would never may be called out again. But the quote is, one of my own, is the amount of, and pardon me for the term, it's just the amount of suck in real leadership does not devalue the calling. So it is not meant to be glorious. It is depleting. It is by virtue very sacrificial, just like Jesus. You are here to serve, not to be served. And that may take up to everything you have to do it right. That doesn't devalue the calling. So if you're feeling lost or alone, I always tell leaders, if you're not crying at 3 a.m. in the shower from time to time, you might not be doing it right. That's all part of it. You are in the right place. You are going the right way. And someday, if you continue on this path, you will hear, well done, good and faithful servant.
Amen. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. We have a few minutes left here. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about the goal of El Pasoans Fighting Hunger and where they can find out more?
Absolutely. Our goal is to not only meet the hunger crisis here in our region, and by the way, we're at 35% food insecurity. It's a very high number. That means a third of our population is not sure if they're going to get another meal, where it's going to come from, or what it's going to look like. It's just about double that of any Texas city of the same size or higher. That's a crazy number. We got to do something about that. So our goal is to meet that need. As a secondary follow-on goal, I want to get people out of that situation for the future. So give them fish now. I think we need to meet them right now in the need Don't question where it came from. And then give them tools to be able to fish in the future for themselves and not be in that line again. So that's really the twofold mission. The vision is a hunger-free El Paso region.
Yeah, beautiful.
ElPasoansFightingHunger.org is a place to go. We need support in 3 ways. First way is come volunteer. They are the lifeblood. Volunteers are the lifeblood of our organization. I don't have the staff to be able to do everything on my own. So come volunteer. Consider being part of our giving family. 60% of our funding comes from the government. The rest is up to us. And if we don't meet that 40%, our doors close.
Wow.
And lastly, just tell our story. Talk about us and share what we're trying to do.
Well, we will do that indeed. Thank you so much for being with us today, Kris.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
If God is writing a story in your workplace, we'd love to hear about it. You can share it with us by visiting 323podcast.com. That's the numbers 323podcast.com. We'll be back again next week with more great conversations on connecting your Sunday faith to your Monday life. Until then, may God bless your work this week. May He renew your strength, deepen your joy, and remind you that you're serving Him in all you do.